The moment a woman stops orienting her life around men, something very specific happens. Not loudly, not immediately, but deeply in the social fabric, in power dynamics, and in how people begin to treat her. This video is not about dating advice. It's not about hating men, and it's not about empowerment slogans. This is about what actually happens, psychologically and socially, when a woman recenters her attention, validation, and identity back onto herself. By the end of this, you'll understand why this shift unsettles some people, liberates others, and permanently alters how a woman moves through the world. For most of history, women have been conditioned, subtly and overtly, to orient themselves around men, around male approval, male desire, male attention, male reaction. This conditioning isn't always obvious. It shows up as politeness, as emotional labor, as over-explaining, as self-monitoring. A woman learns early that being liked is safer than being neutral, that being desired is more valuable than being respected, that being agreeable is rewarded. So when a woman decenters men, she's not rejecting men. She's rejecting a psychological hierarchy that placed her attention beneath someone else's needs. And hierarchies do not collapse quietly. The first thing that happens when a woman decenters men is confusion. Men who are used to being the emotional reference point suddenly can't read her. She doesn't. Perform interest on cue, adjust her behavior for male comfort, shrink her opinions to stay palatable. This creates uncertainty, and uncertainty triggers anxiety in people who rely on predictability to maintain power. Because here's the dark psychological truth. People feel safest when they know how to affect you. When a woman decouples her emotional state from male response, she becomes harder to influence. And influence is the currency many social systems quietly rely on. The second thing that happens is projection. A woman who decentered men is often labeled cold, arrogant, masculine, bitter, intimidating. Notice something important. These labels don't describe her behavior. They describe other people's discomfort. When a woman stops managing male perception, she stops buffering male insecurity, and insecurity hates exposure. So instead of asking, why does her independence unsettle me? The mind says, there must be something wrong with her. Projection protects fragile self-concepts. The third thing that happens is a sudden shift in male behavior. Some men disengage entirely, not because they're uninterested, but because they no longer feel centered. Others escalate. More attention, more testing, more attempts to regain emotional leverage. Why? Because decentering removes automatic access. And access without effort is something many people unconsciously expect. When it's gone, the loss feels personal, even though it isn't. Now let's talk about the internal shift, because this is where the real transformation occurs. When a woman decenters men, her nervous system recalibrates. She stops scanning rooms for reactions, stops adjusting tone mid-sentence, stops anticipating how she'll be perceived. This frees enormous mental bandwidth. Energy once spent on self-monitoring gets redirected toward self-trust, intuition, personal goals, emotional clarity. And here's the paradox. She often becomes more attractive, but far less available, not because she's withholding, but because her attention is no longer up for negotiation. From a dark psychology lens, this is disruptive. Why? Because attention equals power. Who you center determines who has leverage over you. When a woman centers herself, she becomes less reactive, less easily guilted, less manipulable through approval or withdrawal. This doesn't make her cruel, it makes her ungovernable. And systems built on compliance don't like ungovernable individuals. Another consequence is selective connection. When men are no longer the axis, a woman becomes discerning by default. She doesn't chase chemistry, she observes consistency. She doesn't reward intensity, she values stability. This flips traditional dating dynamics. Instead of asking, do they want me? She asks, do I respect how they move? That question alone filters out a vast majority of performative behavior. But let's be honest, decentering men isn't comfortable at first. It often comes with loneliness, guilt, social pushback, accusations of selfishness. Why? Because many women have been rewarded for self-abandonment. When you stop abandoning yourself, people who benefited from that loss will notice, and they may resist. That resistance is not evidence you're doing something wrong. It's evidence that the system noticed your absence. Here's something rarely said out loud. A woman who decenters men becomes a mirror. She reflects back emotional immaturity, power imbalances, unexamined entitlement. Some men rise to meet that reflection. Others resent it. Both reactions are information. Importantly, decentering men does not mean rejecting love. It means love is no longer the organizing principle of your identity. It becomes an addition, not a foundation. This changes the quality of relationships entirely. Connections become mutual, not compensatory, chosen, not needed, grounded, not anxious. And that's threatening to people who rely on being needed to feel valuable. Over time, something subtle but profound happens. A woman who decenters men develops internal authority. She no longer needs external confirmation to validate her choices. She moves slower, speaks less, but with more weight, listens more than she explains. Her presence shifts, and people feel it. Not because she's dominant, but because she's self-anchored. This is why some people respond with hostility, not because she's changed who she is, but because she stopped being who they relied on. And here's the final truth most people won't tell you. Decentering men doesn't make a woman powerful. It reveals the power she was already giving away. That's why it feels radical. If this message clarified something you felt but couldn't articulate, like this video. If you've experienced the shift, or are in the middle of it, comment. Your insight matters more than you think. And if you want more content that doesn't tell you how to feel, but helps you see, subscribe. This channel isn't about pleasing anyone. It's about awareness. And awareness changes everything.